Welcome to Epilepsy Unplugged, a new podcast from the Epilepsy Foundation of Texas.
This is the space to have real conversations about what it's like to live with epilepsy, learn from experts, and celebrate the heroes in our community. My name is Taylor Goldenthal.
And I'm Melanie Leonard.
And I'm Rebecca Moreau. Let's get started.
Yeah. Today, we're tackling a very important topic, epilepsy and pregnancy. We're honored to have two incredible guests joining us, Abby Alford, who is the author of the book Seize the Day, which chronicles her personal journey as a young person living with epilepsy and now a mother of two girls. And we're also joined by Dr. Gavvala, a leading medical expert from UTHealth and the chair of the EFTX Professional Advisory Board, who also was Abby's doctor during her pregnancies. Abby and Dr. Gavvala, thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you for having us.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah. So Abby, I'd like to start with you and learn a little bit more about your personal journey and learn a little bit more about your two incredible girls. So if you could share a little bit about your story of managing epilepsy during your pregnancies.
Absolutely. Well, I will say that being pregnant and having epilepsy is hard. And it's definitely something that takes a lot of planning. And as a woman, it's kind of one of those things that you think about. Some people think about it a lot and always want to have children. And in the back of my mind, leading up to that, I was never sure because I couldn't imagine potentially, passing that on to my child. But eventually it got to the point where I was like, I really want to do this. And so I really want to have a child. My husband and I wanted to have a child. And so I was just like, well, I'm just going to work really closely with my doctors. I had seen, women do it successfully. I started kind of looking online and seeing, women that had children. And I was like, okay, I'm going to do this and we're going to give it a shot. And we did a lot of preparation before I actually got pregnant, including genetic testing on both me and my husband to look at recessive genes.
Oh, wow.
Yep. And I worked with Dr. Gavvala. We actually tried to get rid of one of my medications prior to me getting pregnant, but that didn't work for me. I had a breakthrough seizure.
Yeah.
And I was really, really uncomfortable. And so that didn't work. And so by the time I was really ready, I had an action plan and was comfortable with where we had gotten with my medications. And it was pretty much the best we were going to be able to do to get pregnant.
Yeah, Abby, I'd love to know, how long did that journey take for you to even start? Because we know trying to conceive, right?
Yeah.
Super hard. It's almost like a miracle every time it happens. But
Absolutely.
You did a lot of prep work. So how long did that process take?
I mean, that's a great question. My husband and I were probably thinking about it and working through all of these steps for 2 years.
Wow.
Before even trying. And then, we had.
Then you start trying.
Then we start trying and I had a miscarriage.
Yeah.
Yep. And then a little bit later, I got pregnant with Emma, which was great.
Okay.
Yeah.
Is that a good timing, like 2 years of like trying to make sure like this is the safest way to do it in the medical sense, Dr. Gavvala?
Honestly, the longer, as much advance notice as we can have, the better. There really does take a lot of coordination, as Abby talked about, in terms of planning out what are the best medications that we think are going to optimally control the seizures, what are the safest medicines for both the woman and the future child, what are the risks that are going to happen with this, and preparing for what that pregnancy may look like in terms of complexities, blood work, and all of that. And so all of those things take time. All of that takes coordination. And so in some cases, it's more of a straightforward conversation, and that's all we need to do. In others, it's actually changing medications, optimizing the medication doses. And so if we can have at least a year, if not longer, to kind of plan that out, it would be ideal.
Is the answer always yes, it's safe for you to get pregnant, or is it sometimes that this is just not the best course for you?
I think we've come a long way. I mean, there are historical documentation, and even now I hear it where women are told that they shouldn't become pregnant. And I never want that to be the scenario that someone is being told to do that. There are always other options. I guess there are things like surrogacy if we're really worried about the woman's health during the pregnancy. But by and large, I think there's almost always a scenario where we can attempt it. It's just a matter of the tolerance of the risk. So are we willing to risk the potential of medicine fluctuations or breakthrough seizures? How important is it for the woman to carry their own child? And those are personal decisions. So it's hard for me to ever feel like I have to tell someone you can't get pregnant. And that's never come up, thankfully, in my career.
Thank goodness. It's really how far the medical community has come is so great, and really taking women's health seriously and all of that. So that's really great to hear that. Abby, what was the most challenging time of your pregnancies? I know each pregnancy is different. Mm-hmm. What was the most challenging part of your pregnancies?
Well, I was very sick, but yes. that wasn't related to epilepsy. That was just really uncomfortable. Yeah. The most challenging part for me was the way we had to increase my medicine so quickly. Every time I would go in to see Dr. Gavvala and get blood drawn, I would get a call 2 days later, like, you need more medicine. And it's, because a breakthrough seizure, obviously we have a doctor here, he can tell you, but I would say a breakthrough seizure during pregnancy is worse than additional medication. Is that right? Yeah. Okay. You're the doctor.
No. I mean, and this is the thing that's really hard to convey sometimes is, when we have these conversations, someone may be used to being on, 500 milligrams of a medicine, and that's worked all their life. And then I tell them, I think I need to go up. And it's hard to understand why, but it has to do with the blood levels. And so at 500 milligrams, when you're not pregnant, you may have a level of, let's say, maybe 10 or something. But then during the pregnancy, some medications are rapidly broken down. And so that all of a sudden that level of 10 is now like 1 or 2. So that 500 milligrams isn't going to cut it. You're more at risk of having a seizure. And so now that 500 may turn into 1,500 or 2,000. Wow. And so you're hearing that number, you're like, oh my gosh, that's going to be bad for the baby. But actually, that's not the thing that matters. It's the blood level. And so that's where the planning comes into play. If we have a baseline blood level and we're tracking that over time, it doesn't matter how high that number is, as long as that baseline blood level is pretty equivalent, then we think that risk of seizures is going to be fairly low.
Yeah. And so for me, I think, it could have, because if my blood levels were just kind of staying equal, it was probably mental that, oh my gosh, I have to increase my medicine again. Like, I'm already on so much medicine. I was just it just felt overwhelming. And, with the side effects, I take Keppra and Lamictal. And with the side effects of those two, I felt like overwhelmed when I had to increase it every time. And then, you do know, as when you're going into this, you're looking at what the medications can do to, the child potentially.
Right. And
it's just in the back of your mind, like, oh my gosh, like, can I get by with this little dose? Like, is there any way? But I mean, those of us with epilepsy can relate to the fact that you start to know you might have a seizure. And every time kind of that would come up, I would email Dr. Gavvala and be like, hey, I'm starting to feel like I might not have enough medicine in my system. Like, you can feel that, and that was happening throughout the pregnancy. Even though I was super upset every time I had to increase my dosage, I kind of knew that was part of it. And for me, that was the hardest part, is the medicine adjustments and trying to keep them level.
This Giving Tuesday, December 2nd, please consider a donation to Epilepsy Foundation Texas. Every gift helps us provide vital services and support to the epilepsy community, like camps, clinics, and education at no cost to families. Help us make sure that no Texan faces epilepsy alone. Donate today at EFTX.org.
I can only imagine the anxiety you must have felt. I mean, I had what they call geriatric pregnancy, and you're always thinking about like, oh, what am I doing? It's going to harm the baby? Did I have a baby too late? All of that.
Yes.
But when you add on epilepsy, like the anxiety just must increase.
The stress. Yeah. I know for me, while I don't have children now, when I was married, we did try for a while. And it's stressful. for me particular, because I felt my seizures were more active right before my menstrual cycle starting, that drop in progesterone, it was stressful on my body. And so even the thought of trying to get pregnant and mess with my hormones that are already causing me to have seizures either way is stressful.
Yeah.
And then all of those things start to compound, right? Because the more stress you're under, the more likely you are of having a seizure. So you're trying to maintain and be calm. You're already stressed trying to conceive a baby on top of all of these other nuances that epilepsy may bring.
Yeah, 100%. And I'm a proud older mom, I will say. My girls are 6 and 3, so I was older when I had children, and so I was in that category as well. And it's just one of those things. But I do think the what do they call it's analysis by paralysis or paralysis by analysis. Yes. I was so concerned about the fact that this could impact my future child that I just did nothing, and so it's kind of, I was always kind of like delay just in case, like, I don't know. And so I'm glad that, everything happened the way it did and we had enough time to plan, but also I was so concerned that I kind of waited also.
Yeah. So Dr. Gavvala, kind of speaking on those same terms there, how has the medical landscape changed for epilepsy and pregnancy? And if what does the future potentially look like?
Well, I think if we can go back even 20, 30 years, or maybe even less than that, women with epilepsy were told not to become pregnant, not to have children because of risks, or the medicines that they were on were too dangerous for the child. So we've made a huge number of advances there, where now we have medicines that are thought to be as safe as not being on any medicine in terms of risk for the woman who's carrying the child as well as the child. So that is a huge step. So we have these medications that are available that may offer that. And there are newer medicines that are coming out that are probably safe, although we don't have as much data with them as well. And so now we just have a lot more options in terms of women who want to become pregnant that we can potentially switch their medications to, which may help with better seizures. We're also learning a lot more. So now, and we've been collecting data, but now we have even more data of all these women who have been pregnant, and we have registries of women who have been on certain medications, and looking at factors in terms of what is the risk to them, what is the risk to the baby, both in terms of the pregnancy, but in terms of their future cognition, developmental factors, all things that a family would want to know about in terms of anticipating what that would look like for their child. So now we have all this data that's out there, both from registries around the world, and then that each of these newer companies are collecting data on their new medications. And so over time, we're collecting that as well. And so now I think the future is going to look a lot better in terms of us being able to give women more data. So when someone comes to the clinic saying, I'm thinking about having pregnancy, or I want to become pregnant, what's the risk? Sometimes we're very nebulous with that, but now we can be a little bit more concrete. And then the other thing where I think things are really going to change and really sprout, and Abby already alluded to this, was the genetics. So genetics, for most adults, is kind of an afterthought. Adult practicing doctors don't really look into genetics. That's really a childhood pediatric thing historically. Now we're learning so much more about the genetics and how they actually impact overall care, medicine choices, disease kind of trajectories. And so now understanding which kinds of epilepsy may have a genetic linkage, how may that impact the risk of the child getting that disease, those are things that are still in kind of their infancy. And so in 5 years or 10 years, it's going to be a whole different ballgame in terms of that landscape.
Dr. Gavvala, do you have any advice for if there's a woman out there who has epilepsy, is thinking about getting pregnant, where she should go? Should she, if she's in with her general neurologist, should she go to an epileptologist? Where's the best place for her to be?
With Dr. Gavvala.
Are there 20 Dr. Gavalas?
Yeah.
That's right. I must say I'm really biased in that I think so much of this is knowledge, right? So, and there's two parts to it. There's one is knowledge and one is comfort. So I'll start with the comfort. That's easier. You want to make sure that whoever you're working with, you're comfortable talking and being open and transparent. And also, likewise, the answers you're getting, you're hoping that they're transparent and open about it and not dismissive. And so I've heard stories of, this question's coming up and that conversation shut down. Like they'll say, no, don't even worry about it, or you can't become pregnant, or, or there's not really clarity in terms of risk or data or any of that. If you're having that scenario, I think it's very clear that you should seek, an expert. And I think an expert would be an epileptologist, so someone who's a neurologist who's been specifically trained in epilepsy and probably at a comprehensive epilepsy center. Even more so than that, there are a few epileptologists who actually focus on women's health, and I think that would be the optimal, ideal scenario if you're able to find that, but that may not always be the case.
November is National Epilepsy Awareness Month, a time to shine light on the more than 3.4 million Americans living with this condition. Throughout the month, Epilepsy Unplugged is dedicated to sharing personal stories and new insights to build understanding and reduce stigma. Help us raise awareness. Learn more and share your story at the Epilepsy Foundation Texas website, EFTX.org.
Yeah, and I think one of the really good things about the Epilepsy Foundation of Texas, like I mentioned earlier, you are the chair of our professional advisory board. Okay. So one of the resources that the foundation can provide to women and all of Texans are some of those resources to help you get connected to the appropriate epilepsy doctor, epileptologist, and different things. And another thing, Rebecca, I love that our clinics can also see and give these women some more immediate attention if needed.
Right. I would say that if you call, we have a great professional advisory board in Houston and in Dallas, and we can offer you names of doctors who have been vetted by our professional advisory board. And then also on our clinics through the Epilepsy Foundation, we offer people who have no insurance or are underinsured specialized care in epilepsy. So that's just such an important access piece, that everybody in Texas has access to a doctor who specializes in epilepsy. So the not paying is not a problem for our clinic.
Yeah.
You come, you get the treatment, we get the test, all of that good stuff.
Yeah, no, if you have epilepsy in Texas, you are not alone with, with the foundation that we have here.
Absolutely.
Okay, well, as we start to wrap up, I'd like to start with Abby and then go to Dr. Gavvala. But what is one key takeaway that you want our listeners to remember from this conversation today?
I think for me, the most important takeaway is that if you're a woman and you want to start a family, you're a woman with epilepsy and you want to start a family, it's absolutely possible. And surround yourself with, your village that's going to help you get through it. And you'll be okay. And then, one thing we didn't talk about is once the children are born and raising them and all of the things that you think as a mom, is this because of me? Like, we had a video EEG when my daughter was 3 months old, and I just remember sitting in Texas Children's parking lot crying, being like, this is everything I didn't want to happen. Like, I can't believe and
I think just the pressure of being a woman and did I do this to my
child?
Did
I do this?
Yeah.
And so, those are those thoughts, you're not alone. Mm-hmm. And that, find that support system, because I would be happy to talk to anybody that's thinking about getting pregnant, share my experience in more detail and what I've gone through now that they're a little bit older, because just find that village, and it's absolutely possible.
And you can contact us here at the Epilepsy Foundation, and we can get you in contact with Abby. And Abby, you brought up a good point. Maybe in season 2, we talk about being a mom with epilepsy and what that means. Dr. Gavvala?
Yeah, so I think Abby's point's a really big one and an important one, is that this is possible. There shouldn't ever be a scenario where it's not an option, and so you need to seek the team that will help support that, and I think that applies to the medical team as well. So the medical professionals that are knowledgeable about it, that are going to counsel you and walk you through that process. And that may mean that you have to kind of stray a little bit away from your comfort zone in terms of you're used to this medicine, maybe it's Dilantin or whatever that you've been on forever that you think may work, but maybe there's something a little bit better. Maybe there's something that's a little bit safer, and you want to have a medical doctor who can kind of manage that and help you through that and be a a sounding board for ideas.
Yeah.
Well, Abby and Dr. Gavvala, thank you so much for coming in today and talking to us about epilepsy and pregnancy. I know that there's going to be listeners out there that hear your words and know that they got the help that they needed. And thank you so much for doing this.
Of course.
Thank you.
Thanks so much.
That's a wrap on another episode of Epilepsy Unplugged. We want to thank our guests for sharing their story and experience.
And we want to thank you for listening. If you liked what you heard, please subscribe and leave a review on your favorite podcast app, as it really helps us grow this community.
You can also connect with us and Epilepsy Foundation Texas by visiting EFTX.org. Until next time, stay strong and stay informed.